it is a shocking problem that's happening worldwide because it's so broad. It's happening everywhere. It has everything to do with money and power. It's in the shoes that you wear. It's in the food that you eat. It's in the politics that you have thrust upon you. It has to do with multinational corporations. It has to do with immigration. And that's just talking about the labor trafficking part of it.
I must confess, actually, I realized that I still had rose-colored glasses on my nose because something inside of me got a little scared.
Once you've seen this stuff, you have to keep looking. You cannot look away. I can't.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of TikTok Talks. I'm your host, Jason, and today my co-host will be Olga. And we have a surprise guest for you today. So please, Olga, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jason, for introduction, and I welcome all the guests who are watching this video. Today we have a guest from USA, Billy Joe Cain, a 32-year-old veteran of the interactive industry, how he calls himself, learned about grooming because his children were being manipulated by his boss, a friend he'd known for years. Now he's teaching others to stay safe from these victimizers through interactive education. For his nonprofit, Radical Empathy Education Foundation, he developed an immersive virtual reality experience, which in 15 minutes demonstrates how anyone can be psychologically manipulated into becoming a victim of a human trafficking. Please welcome Billy Joe at our show.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Billy Joe, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to kick things off with a very special question that normally those in the industry would ask such a thing. So you dive right into the worst parts of our society, and you expose these facets that people would otherwise like to bury their heads in the sand about. So how do you do it? How do you hold on to that grit and move forward, exposing these facets of our society?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say that, when I first found out that this was happening to my kids, and we went to the police and they explained what grooming was, and I decided I was really going to get into this and make a difference. The first thing that I wanted to do was really understand this topic. I've been making games forever, and so usually I'll dig into, football or soccer, or I had to do a rugby game or space games or whatever. But this was like a new topic I didn't know anything about. So I started getting into looking at documentaries, reading books, reading blogs, podcasts, and movies and things like that. But the truth was that I could only consume a certain amount of content like every day or every couple of days. Like I'd read a book for about an hour one is, and they keep doing it. And so the last thing I'll say before I'll let you pull all that stuff to pieces, that when I first started in this field, I traveled all over the United States and I met dozens and dozens of specialists that do this stuff constantly. And so I decided I was going to ask them two questions. Number one, do you have any mental health or psychiatric therapy provided by your job? And not a single person said yes. So of everyone that I asked, they were like, yeah, I don't get any help. I don't have anything. I'm like, is there anybody at your police station, or you're this place or you're that place? And they're like, no, we just don't have it. A lot of nonprofits that work in this field can't afford any of that stuff. Okay, so first thing is these people are being psychologically destroyed by doing this. I'm lucky. I don't deal with that ugly level of this stuff. I just find out about it and I teach people about it. And of course, I've been involved in a lot of it, but that's not what I do all the time. So the second question I asked was, what is the turnover rate in this field? What's burnout like? And so the average that I got after asking about 100 people was a year and a half. A year and a half. And so we're supposed to believe that these agencies that are working to end this or help people, or that work in law enforcement, etc., we're supposed to believe that these organizations have connections that actually know each other. How can you do that if you have, let's just say you had 5 people in one org and 5 at another org? Maybe a couple of these people will know each other, and if they're leaving after a year and a half, how do you keep these things working together like a machine? The answer is you don't. So not only do we have a crisis of people not knowing this is the problem, not only do we have a crisis of this being in every single thing that you participate with across the world, we also have the people that are trying to help it are getting burned out, and they don't have interagency connection without the rare person that stays for longer than a year and a half. There you go.
Real quick. So not only does our society need to be aware about this, the different facets, but the people that work within these fields, they don't receive any cognitive behavioral therapy for PTSD whatsoever.
I would say that I can't say without exception that that's true, but I can say that in my
majority of the cases,
in my experience, it is almost 100% true. It is disastrous. It is chewing people up, and yeah, that's what I would say. There's so many other issues that are like way at the bottom of this. Do you mind if I just start ranting on this? So normally people teach because they understand a topic, or they can go learn a topic and they can figure it out and they can move forward, right? So one of the problems with trafficking is that people are not taught anything about trafficking in their normal life. They're not taught anything about it in middle school, high school, and they're not even taught about it in college. I've talked to nurses and doctors that have graduated and never had any training whatsoever. I've talked to people in criminal justice. They've never been taught this stuff. And of course, there are exceptions, and everyone that's working in this field is an absolute hero. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to the rank and file people that are graduating, they are not getting this education. And so one of the problems with that is that since they leave school and don't get that education, maybe they'll get it in an annual training, but they don't feel confident in their knowledge of the material to teach it. Now, I can rant about this forever on high school levels, but I'll be more specific. My partner, Dr. David D., he's a professor in Chicago. He has 2 different universities he works at in criminal justice. And the thing is that he has been worried about trafficking since forever. So all of his projects ever have been on trafficking. And one of the papers that he wrote, big dissertation, was on the quantity and quality of material that's being taught in criminal justice about human trafficking. And he did a breakdown of all their textbooks and all of the materials. He did interviews with the teachers. And his takeaway, and of course, he has this paper that, once it's being written up right now. The takeaway is that there is no requirement across the board for people to learn anything about trafficking. In fact, I have an entire blog post that was written by one of my advisors on each of the United States, which states have training, which states don't, so you're not required to learn it, and they're not required to teach it. So they may spend 6 months teaching somebody how to do a traffic stop to write somebody a ticket, but they spend 0 minutes on teaching somebody how to stop trafficking. I don't understand how they have this so backwards. And then the last thing I want to add about that is that, when we think about trafficking, and I'm not talking about domestic minor sex trafficking, which is an enormous problem, obviously, but I'm thinking about labor trafficking. I'm thinking about agricultural trafficking. I'm thinking about people that work at carnivals and all these other things that are happening everywhere. The people that are supposed to stop that, they're not like federal agents that wear a special suit and walk in and check people's paperwork. This is supposed to be done by local law enforcement. So if you think about just the system, do you really think that somebody that has a giant agricultural, business, making millions and tens of millions of dollars in their small community, do you think that person is going to go over there and break up that trafficking that's happening in their area so that it destroys those small field or small farms? And then if you think about it even bigger, if you watch Super Size Me 2, Morgan Spurlock does an expose of the agricultural business and how big ag works and how the farmers are at the bottom of this thing, and they're being trafficked because they have to put themselves into debt to buy all the equipment so they can grow all the animals. And then whenever the people that I would call the victimizers, which is big ag, when they want to mess you over and they want to affect your yield, what they do is they give you crappier eggs from the chicken farms. So they know that you're going to get crappy eggs, so they're basically punishing you. So why would local law enforcement that aren't being trained about trafficking, and they know these people personally, and they know that it affects their entire areas, why would they even do anything? So the system itself is completely broken from the time that somebody is supposed to learn about how our world works and our economies work and capitalism works, starting probably in middle school. And I'm just talking about money. Then you've got nothing's happening in college, nothing's happening in the field that are out there. Again, don't get me wrong. There are some places that are amazing places. And there are amazing people working in this thing. But when you look at it as a whole, we're not doing much, if anything. And when you take a bigger step back, everything's just getting worse. Nothing is getting better. And then when you want to talk about sex trafficking, the explosion of what is going on right now all across the world, with people that are being trafficked by strangers, or people that are being trafficked in their family, or being trafficked by their friends. This is outrageous. I mean, we have high schoolers that are pimping out middle schoolers, and middle schoolers that are pimping out other people. I mean, this thing is like a cancer, because once somebody gets in and they're under somebody else's control, sometimes what they have to do is they have to go find someone else to bring them in. So the whole system just is self-perpetuating. And then, okay, so now that you've heard all of that stuff, when you look at the number of cases, prosecutions, and actual convictions and people going to prison, the number is unbelievably small. Just it's incredibly small. And so it's like, who's getting arrested, who's getting prosecuted, and who's being convicted? And the answer is almost no one. So for people that understand about what trafficking is, you're not taking a drug, you're not growing a drug and and messing with that drug and processing that drug and packaging that drug and moving that drug and then finding a customer and then selling that thing, where you see it all the time and it's a one-time thing. You take it here, it gets consumed, and that's it. A person is used over and over and over and over, 20 to 30 times a day, 7 days a week. These people make tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of each person per year. The International Labor Organization that looks at it for the entire world, they have an estimate of $150 billion per year that's being basically taken by these traffickers. So how this problem is ever going to get any better only starts with awareness that it's real, and then teaching people what it is. So I can continue, but maybe I should let you ask some questions, because I will talk about this.
Thank you so much, Billy Joe. It's like, I don't know, 10 minutes, whole introduction into this area. And I think even a viewer who never heard of human trafficking now has an understanding that, first of all, it's a huge business. Second, it will never stop in the consumerist format of society. And third, everyone is vulnerable to be a victim of a human trafficking. It doesn't matter on your status, social status, richness, power, anything. Even your kid can get kidnapped and be used in any kind of this dark area of our society. Thank you so much for detailed information, and also for explanation, like how the system works. From what I've heard, that it's really a business, it's a huge area, and it's a system which is rotten from the beginning. So for even a viewer who hears it for the first time, I think the question will be like, it didn't happen accidentally. It feels like the system is very organized, actually. It cannot be just accidentally appearing that everything is working like a clock and this area becomes the biggest source of income in the world. That's statistics, actually. And for example, child trafficking, the number of children getting trafficked raised tripled over last 15 years. So someone wins on it, right? And it's actually a rhetorical question. I offered to watch our first video. Maybe after that, we can discuss a little wider this question.
Did you know that almost all of the planet's resources are concentrated in the hands of a small group of people? Today, only 1% of people own more wealth than the rest 99% of the world's population. And the trend is that this world's wealth is flowing into the hands of this 1% at a great speed. Since 2020, the wealth of the world's 10 richest men has more than doubled. Their wealth during the pandemic increased at a rate of $15,000 per second, or $1.3 billion a day. Meanwhile, the vast majority of the population was only becoming poorer. The number of beggars living on less than $2 a day has increased by 160 million.
What do you think about it, Billy Joe? Do you think there is some correlation between those 1% who is getting richer and richer and those problems which we are facing as ordinary people?
Well, I mean, let's put it like this. There's no way one person can earn $1 billion. It's just impossible. There's theft is happening at some point. So what I would say is this: let's take a step back even further, right? So I mean, I could talk forever about oligarchy and the people that I've met, and rich people and how much they care about humans. I mean, I get all that stuff. But what I want to say is that while everything is getting worse and human trafficking is either getting worse, which I think it really is, or people are just becoming more aware of it, and as we uncover it, it's just showing that it's like, oh, it's even worse than we ever thought it was. The driving force of this is not necessarily a cabal of people that have decided to human traffic everyone. It is the drive for power and money. And that drive, and the fact that we all know that that's people's drives, and that's corporations' drives, and that's governments' drives, the fact that we know that's there, that is the thing that causes this to happen. And, you made a very, very, very important point earlier about vulnerabilities, because, I saw this on a video one time. A survivor actually laid this piece of information down. She said, poverty is the biggest pimp. And so if you think about people that are poor and people that are rich that want more money, what's going to happen is there's this race to the bottom. How can you get something done cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper? And well, if you're in an area where you can barely afford to live, you will take any job, no matter how bad it is for you, or you'll be put in a situation where if the grass is greener on the other side of that border, and people say, well, there's jobs that pay twice as much money over there, all you have to do is come on over the border with your passport and we'll happily take you on and all this stuff. I mean, people are vulnerable for many reasons. Poverty is the biggest reason. Being without a place to sleep, that's another huge thing. But the thing that's really sick about this entire thing is that these people are taking advantage of our human strength / weakness, that we want to love and be connected to people and have attention. So one of our biggest vulnerabilities is to not have love and attention coming from somewhere. So you have people that are seeking that love and attention, or they're seeking that money, or there's, because they can't eat, et cetera, or, whatever it is. And these traffickers come in and they fulfill that need, or they at least make you think so. So one way to think about trafficking, and this is not necessarily a certain type, but this is essentially the pattern, right? So you have vulnerabilities, someone comes up and they find out, what are your vulnerabilities, your specific vulnerabilities? Oh, you don't have you're a foster kid, or you don't have a passport, or your parents are refugees, or you're poor, or whatever. It's like they start interviewing you and they find out what's missing. And then they say, oh, I can help you with that. Oh, you're homeless right now. Hey, well, that's all right. I've got a room in the back. You can stay here for a while. No big deal. Oh, it sounds great, and they start paying attention to you. And all of a sudden you get under their spell, under their power, and then they can do anything that they want to manipulate you. So it's money and vulnerabilities and power all combined in a cocktail that results in us being abused and taken advantage of, and it just grows like a cancer. And the people that are involved in it, the ones that are like at the top that are making all the money, they're the ones that have the big magnet. And then below that are like the people that are in the middle, and they want some more money, so they have to grow the stuff at the bottom. So it's like a pyramid scheme where you're just trying to constantly grow more people and bring them up so that all that money gets pulled up to the top. And this is it. This is in the DNA of corporations. If you read a corporation's bio, first thing it says is, hey, guess what? We want to make for the shareholders, provide value to the shareholders. Well, how do you do that? You lower costs and raise income. So it's everywhere. Sorry.
Thank you, Billy Joe. Jason, do you have something to add before we switch to another video?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Everything on its head, actually, like a nail that sticks out. So.
Yeah, Billy Joe, you're hitting it right to the nose, like where the roots are going from of not just human trafficking, but every sickest actions which are happening in our world. Thank you so much for that.
It is. And I worry sometimes that this makes me actually physically vulnerable to people that don't want me to say this stuff, but I can't not say it. Once you've seen this stuff, you have to keep looking. You cannot look away. I can't. Let's see what this new video is all about. How are you going to depress me now?
Okay. Now I was thinking like what to speech to, because we have a video from one of our speakers from the last forum. Her name is Veza Solange, and she was actually making the same conclusions as you are. I think we should watch it.
Human trafficking is destabilizing homes. Human trafficking is yet another cruel way of taking away the value in human lives. And this is affecting society in such a way that people are feeling so helpless that they are pretending that it is not happening. And we truly need to stop pretending, stop closing our eyes and opening our eyes to the truth. If we feel like the people that are meant to protect us are not protecting us anymore, that it is our responsibility to protect each other, to watch out for each other. A lot of the times, the only reason that evil is so bold is because it knows that no one from the good side is going to try to do anything.
Spot on. What do you think, Billy Joe?
Nailed it. That's part of my mission is not just to teach people how to keep themselves safe, but it is really to try to open people's eyes to the evil of what's going on. I know I was mentioning earlier that I read constantly. Every day I read probably 12 different news articles from all around the world about what's going on in trafficking, and I post them on all my own social media. One of my friends, when I first started this thing, he goes, why are you choosing human trafficking? That topic is radioactive. And I was like, well, that's really why, because it's radioactive. We have to talk about that are that broken. And so I post stuff on social media constantly. No one cares. No one. I mean, it approaches zero. So it's so crazy that there are so many things that are going on around the world. I mean, like entire, look what just happened in India, those floods. How many of those people do you think are going to get trafficked after that thing? They don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any jobs anymore. They don't even have buildings in their city. So it's like, and look what's going on in Ukraine, every other country in the world. I mean, there's some countries where their culture, their family culture is to have a child to give away or to sell, having to sell their children's kidneys and organs. It is so ugly. And how do we get people to look at it? I quite frankly, my partner Dave and I, we talk about trafficking so much that people just don't want to hear it. But they just don't want to hear about it. They all want to pretend like this stuff is not happening. And these are like people that I consider to be smart, wise, intelligent, bright people that care about the universe. But when I start, I'm just like going, hey, let me tell you about that food that you're eating. Let me tell you about where that came from. Let me tell you about who processed that seafood. Let me tell you about what's happening in that battery that you have right there, where that stuff came from. All this green revolution stuff that I want to believe is going to make a difference. Where do you think they're going to get all that cobalt, all that nickel? I mean, who do you think is picking all that stuff up? That stuff is not being processed by adults that are being paid, regular wages that make any sense. I mean, like, I look around my car right now and I feel horrendously guilty. I mean, like, we don't even know where cotton comes from, for crying out loud. But they've mixed it in, so they now have they have all the different producers, and those producers, they bring their stuff to one place, who mixes it all together. So then all of a sudden, part of the stuff that you're owning, that you're wearing, could have been made by slaves. shoes, pants, ink, food, electronic, batteries, and then none of that has anything to do with sex trafficking. And that's all anybody thinks about when you say human trafficking anyway. So it's like, wow. And then we're not even talking, we haven't even gone down the line, organ harvesting or child soldiers or child brides. I mean, like in America, almost all of the states still allow you to marry somebody when you're, under 18. And it's like, what is that if that's not trafficking? It's just like, it's ridiculous. All right.
Thank you, Billy Joe, again, for this truth. And, I feel like you're doing someone's job. Someone's who really doesn't do enough. So, but I don't remember the name. Let's watch a video. Maybe it will tell us what it should be.
Why is it that one company owns over 90% of the world's media and you don't hear much about them? It's because there's power in anonymity and they have a vested interest in keeping us distracted and divided. Bread and circuses, my friends. If this company barely features in print publications and news media, it's because they want it to be so. So naturally, this is where we must lean in because we are curious truth warriors. So some of you may have heard of the company BlackRock already, but this just keeps getting even more wild. BlackRock currently owns 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, and 13% of Comcast, which in turn owns NBC, MSNBC, and Sky. Isn't it funny how Fox and CNN continue to vilify each other when ultimately they're owned by the same people? Now, if any of these companies wanted to make a decision, they would first have to consult with BlackRock before doing so. This is because they control such large stakes in its companies. The same is true for Google, a tech giant worth over $800 billion. Facebook, Amazon, and Twitter are also not exempt. And either is Disney. So thanks to their incredibly diverse investment portfolio in media alone, BlackRock essentially owns over 90% of the world's media. And it doesn't end there. If you don't know about them, it's because they don't want you to.
What do you think about that, Billy Joe?
I think I live that every day. So that none of that is a surprise to me, but my friends don't want to hear it either. So that's it's really difficult knowing that the media that we consume is owned by such a small group of people. And the term inside of there that just kind of, just sort of just goes by bread and circus. That is how we have been ruled for eons. It's never going to change, I don't think, because they have too much power. So, what do I think? BlackRock is an investment group. I don't know how many trillions of dollars that it's in charge of. They basically can make anything happen, no matter what it is that they want. They've got so much money that they can push it around. They can move it through everything. If you're wondering if they might have anything to do with slavery, yeah. You cannot own that much stuff and not be a slave. You just can't.
Thank you, Billy Joe. I don't think
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, the BlackRock and groups like that are purchasing entire subdivisions of homes so that they can own them and rent them to people here in the United States. They're buying up land, state, and I couldn't believe, but an entire subdivision in Houston, Texas was purchased by them. And it's like people have their retirement funds in that place. So it's like it's that they've gotten us, people that are in charge, that put together the concept of corporation, that put together the concept of stock and being able to earn money off of that stuff. They have us addicted to their profit motive, because our retirement is tied up in them being successful. So it's like you are being abused every which way you could possibly imagine. They are taking all of our wealth, and they're also making us bet that they're going to be able to take more of our wealth. So we think that maybe by the time that we retire, we'll have bet on those guys enough so that we'll have something to retire on. Now, of course, we know that 99+% of the universe doesn't have retirement funds or anything like that. But that small amount that does, they're up there protecting the people with all the money. They're the ones that are on the television show being paid tens of millions of dollars to lie to the other people. It's like, there was one thing, it's like, companies that have trillions of dollars pay billionaire or are owned by billionaires that pay millionaires to lie to all the poor people. And so it's like, this is just what's happening. And, you can believe it or not believe it. But if you look around, seriously, look and see who's mining for gold. What are they doing with all that mercury to get the gold out of this stuff? Where do you think that's going? It's getting into our water system. And how do you think that's helping people? I mean, is that the world that we want to live in? And it's all for profit and power, profit and power.
Thank you, Billy Joe. And, thank you so much for making this show so eyes-opening. I think after watching this exact live, people who still were keeping rose-colored glasses on their nose, it will be very difficult to continue wearing them. And
I would like to interrupt at this point to talk about that exact situation, right? So, at the beginning, we talked a little bit about the fact that I built a virtual reality simulation to teach people about how this is a real thing. So I spent a year talking to all those experts and getting to know them and understand the field and finding out, that they're not getting any mental health situation. So what I did was I tried to find the easiest way to connect with someone so that you could say, okay, I understand my life. And if I saw that my life could be tweaked just a little bit and then I could get into trouble, maybe I thought, okay, somebody would understand this. And so I started off with a young girl. She's 13 in the story. And she explains to you how she meets somebody online. She's vulnerable because her family is divorced. Her mom doesn't spend enough time with explained inside the story. And so what happens is her vulnerabilities are, I guess you can say, promoted on Facebook. So she's up on her social media and she's talking about her problems, how she had a fight with her mom. Well, this person, because she has all of her stuff open and not private, finds her, talks to her about it, does the interview process, finds out exactly what her problems are, then starts promising it to her. And this situation is referred to as a Romeo pimp. So this is someone that comes in and they're friendly and they convince you that they're in love with you and they're going to do things for you and buy you things until it's time for that switch. And so this guy just sinks these hooks into this young girl. And by the time that he tricks her into sneaking out for the umpteenth time, that's when he strikes. So he turns her against her family. Anyway, the point is, I could talk about that, I think, for a week. But the point is that experience takes 15 minutes and it's completely interactive. So you have total agency. This isn't a movie. It's a full-on 3D, interactive story that you can do anything in any order that you want to. In 15 minutes, I can take somebody from either I've never heard of this, or this only happens at the border to brown people, or it only happens in other countries, to, oh my God, this could happen to anyone. My virtual reality experience will rip those rose-colored glasses right off of anybody so that they're actually ready and willing to ingest the fact that this is a real thing and it's happening in their real neighborhood to real people by no fault of their own, just because they're human beings and because we want love, attention, and affection. These people are using that as a lever to get what they want, and by the time that we're getting what we want, all of a sudden now the trap is sprung and we can't get out of it. And I would love to offer anyone here, go to Reef Cares, that is REEFCARES, Radical Empathy Education Foundation cares.org. Email me and I will find a way to help you get our virtual reality experience. And if you want to use it to train, I will help you become a licensee. And if you want to learn more about human trafficking in general, if you contact me, I will get you hooked up with our online course that's provided by another company that I run called PBJ Learning. I am committed to this mission, and I will do anything to educate people. And I'm telling you, once you take that VR headset off, you will see. We had a very conservative Texas legislator actually used the experience of he had been really anti-trafficking and been putting money towards the border. When he took that headset off, the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Did you know this could happen to anyone?" And I was like, yes. So this thing works. I've got to get it on more people's heads, because once people understand it, they care about learning about how it's a reality. I'm not saying that I want somebody to go stop, children being, used in a strip mine necessarily or anything like that in other countries. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just barely peek their eyeball open just a little bit, just so when they look and they say, you know what, I could buy a new pair of pants, or I could maybe wear these another month longer, or I could buy my new iPhone 14 right now, or I could, I could probably buy a used one on the internet. It's like if we could just make lots of small changes, it can make a difference. But mostly, if we can just start people getting educated about this, maybe once they're in university level stuff, guess what? Their teachers. Why is it that we're not learning about human trafficking? Because we're learning about materials of industry, or we're learning about geography, or we're learning about this particular industry, or we're learning about law. Like, human trafficking is everywhere, and it should be covered in every single aspect of education, period. There's not a single topic that can't be covered, from an angle of human trafficking. And I say that knowing my partner has done that his entire life. Every single course he's ever been on, anytime they ever let him have the opportunity to write anything, he wrote it about trafficking and that course. Anyway, so the rose-colored glasses can be taken off, but you have to force someone to look at something they don't want to look at. And the thing about this VR headset, children run. They're like, I want to put on a VR headset. I want to see what's going on in VR. You talk to their parents, explain what they're going to see, and then the parents will do the same thing. They will come through. They will use the experience. And what the difference in, and I'm just going to keep rambling till you stop me, but the difference between a kid having this experience and an adult having this experience, a kid is like they're listening to a 13-year-old talk to them. So it is a peer-to-peer conversation. A kid listens to a kid. Kids don't listen to adults. Just stop fooling ourselves thinking that that's really going to happen. It's not happening. So when a parent tries this experience for themselves, what they realize is that they're not spending enough time with their children. They don't know who their children's friends are. They couldn't even name all their children's names. Do they know where their kids are? These are the type of things that parents are thinking about. And inside of the experience, I have little hooks for all sorts of different conversations. So there's condoms that are inside there. So that's a great place to start talking about sexually transmitted diseases or pregnancy or anything of that nature, honestly. And so then then we talk about abuse, about what it's like to have it. Why would you have, if you have a cell phone, why is it that you don't? All these little things. We also talk about divorce. We talk about separation. We talk about having extra jobs and not having enough time for your kids, and how that causes friction inside of a family, how it can cause argument between children and adults. So we cover all of that stuff in there. So it gives parents an opportunity to start having those conversations with kids, and the kids actually starting to realize it's a big deal. We've done this at middle schools. We've had 12-year-old kids tell us about how in the previous year, there were children that were being, trafficked by their stepfather, or that had been taken to Mexico and their family sold one of their kidneys so they could pay for some bill. I mean, like, these children know this stuff, but their parents don't. Even the teachers at that school had no idea either. And I'm going to try to wrap this by saying that I want everyone on this planet to have the ability to try our virtual reality experience. And so what we are doing right now is we are trying to raise $10,000 so that we can put our virtual reality experience inside of a web browser so anyone can try it. So that's the first step. If I can raise 10 grand, I've already raised one. If I can get another $9,000, I can get it up in there and running. And beyond there, we're going to be doing job training with it. So there'll be premium input and things like that. Anyway, it's possible that we can wake people up, and it's possible we can do it in a way that's entertaining and interesting and actually stimulate conversation. Last thing I'll say is that the best way to teach people is through experiential education, which means you have to have a lived experience. It means engaging all of the different modalities of learning, whether it's sight, sound, feeling, touching, tasting, all of these things. And virtual reality hits a lot of them. So you get the learning modality of sight, you get the learning modality of sound, you get the learning modality of kinesthetic, so you're moving around. You are having a more engaged relationship with that young girl than you would have if you had a survivor standing right in front of you. And you always know what somebody's going to learn, so that whatever mental state that person is going to be in, it's not a problem inside of the VR or inside of the online now. So I built the tool that every survivor, every trainer, every police person that's ever seen it is the best tool that's out there on the market. So please, if you're paying attention to this, listen, go to reefcares.org, go to our donate page. Please put just a $1 a month donation will help me balance my books every month. And if somebody wants to drop a 10K or more donation in there, guess what? I can start educating millions of people at the same time, because that's the technology that I've been using to make video games forever. I ran a Facebook game company. We pushed out games to millions of people, and you can have concurrent users. We can do this, but I need some funds to back up what I've already built. It's already being used in universities, high schools, middle schools, criminal justice, and it's being taken around America right now with three different, the other one hasn't been announced yet, but 3 different nonprofits are taking it around America and showing it in the smaller towns. And every time they get to a town, somebody else wants to use it. So we're growing, but I need to grow faster. So please help.
Thank you, Billy Joe. I must confess, actually, while I was listening to you, I realized that I still had rose-colored glasses on my nose because something inside of me got a little scared that this is so close to every one of us, and all of us are so vulnerable. But we have a good news for our viewers. If you guys got scared too, we have 2 words which will give you a hope as it's giving to us. Jason, do you know those 2 words which I'm gonna say?
You actually blinked out right when you said those. What are those 2 words? Say it again to the people in the back.
I want Jason to say them.
Lay them on me, Jason.
No, you want me to say them, huh? The solution is the creative society.
I tell you what, that's why I'm here. I am here to rip the Band-Aids off, to take those rose-colored glasses off, to open people's eyes to what's really happening in the world. I mean, it really is. It's a global crisis, and it's a crisis of people that have power and people that want money and that just don't have a soul, in my opinion. I mean, the biggest pimp out there are groups like the International Monetary Fund. I mean, these people destroy entire countries. They create trafficking on a scale that is just it's unimaginable. They go in and they give money to warlords. Those warlords waste that money, and then all of a sudden, all those resources now belong to the IMF. And who do you think is going to go harvest all those resources? Oh, that's right, all the poor people that have been already destroyed. They don't have any money because poverty is the biggest pimp. And so it's just like it just round and round it goes. I'm the scale of things that I really want to get at fixing is so much bigger than, a person on the corner that's, forcing young women to turn tricks. I want to stop this happening on a global scale, on a huge population scale, on a cultural scale. We have so much work to do. People ask me, they're like, Billy, why are you just worried about trafficking? What's the big deal? I mean, surely you could be working on, something else. I'm like going, dude, trafficking is going to last forever. I mean, the money that's being moved around, the finances that are happening through the major, the banks, even all of these banks, they run money for the cartels. This is known that they're too big to fail. So we let this keep going. We're off the charts. And it's going to take all of the peasants understanding this is really happening before we're going to make a difference. So I want to spark this thing up. I got to get this experience inside of a browser. I've got to wake people up to this topic. I've got to get this education out there. I'm involved in a number of different coalitions all around the state of Texas, and I participate with people that have organizations all over the world. And I see people that they have a horrible situation, a horrible life situation that got them into this, whether they were fleeing a country and being chased up into a tree by a jaguar and held all night long there. I mean, the stories are just, they're horrendous. But what happens is these people will manage to get to the top of the food chain as far as education goes. They may get all the way up to the United Nations. And they put together all this paperwork and all these resolutions and all this documentation saying if we could just do these very simple things, we could make an enormous difference. All that stuff, and I can't say all of it, but very, very little gets enacted, and the rest goes in the garbage. Because the UN, they're not a lawmaking body. They make recommendations. So all these recommendations go out there, and maybe somebody's doing something about it, and maybe it's not. But, and then you have the trafficking and persons report that comes out every year from the United States. And it talks a lot about what's going on in other countries, but they're not talking about what's going on in America. The money, where it's going, the power, who's doing anything, why are they spending all their money on the border instead of working on, domestic minor sex trafficking or educating local law enforcement or things like that. It's just not happening. And for anyone that's watched all the way through this thing to this point, I appreciate it. But if you're in this field and you're working hard and you're doing your best, I appreciate that. I know that you are. I know everybody that's in this field is a superhero, but you're not funded. You're not. I know that you're not getting the psychological support that you need. And we have to make this thing bigger. We've got to have more people wake up and understand that it is such an enormous part of our lives. I mean, really, do you know how much a restaurant worker makes? It's $2.15 an hour plus tips. How is that right? I mean, we have our slavery is alive and well in America inside of our prisons. There's been an enormous, a couple of enormous pieces that have been put out about Arizona's prison system and what's been going on there. There's other cities and I have articles and articles and articles on this stuff, cities that can't function without using slave labor from the prison. They're like, we cannot be fiscally responsible without paying people 50 cents to $1.50 an hour to run our city. And you're just like, you've got to be kidding me. It's bad. And if somebody thinks it's not, email me and I will send you a link to our Knowledge Vault where you can read all about it, because this stuff is real. I'm not making it up. This isn't off of Breitbart or some weird, site. I'm pulling this stuff out of the Justice Department reports, the Department of Labor report, the actual police reports. It's all there. It's just nobody wants to talk about it or think about it. In fact, I was at a kind of a reunion of sort, last weekend, and we were talking about how our employer was actually employing 2 people that were without documentation, and she was employing them at slave wages. And so our question at the time, we were all really young, we were like going, well, what do we do? If we tell somebody, they're going to kick that person out of the country, and then this is going to happen to them. And it's just like, we're trapped because there is no solution. Oh, and here you go. I'll go even further. So imagine that you're a victim and you've been trafficked for years, and whether, I don't care what kind of trafficking it is, but your body is not going to be working the way it's supposed to be working. Your brain is not going to be working the way it's supposed to be working because, trauma, come on, dude. You're never going to get over that stuff. You may not have learned anything. You don't have any job training. You don't have, you know what I'm saying? It's like you basically have been on pause and being damaged for years and years. Well, let's say that you get rescued. And so now you're out. So now somebody has said, hey, we're going to set you up. What do you think they're going to do for you? What do you think is going to happen? We think, oh, well, they're not being trafficked. Now they're going to rejoin society. No, they're not. Some cases, yes. But in most cases, people can't get the help that they need. They get out. Maybe they get a place to live and they get put on, a special dole or whatever the right word is. It is in your area, whatever. But that doesn't pay for the bills, doesn't pay for your house, doesn't pay for medical, it doesn't pay for food. So what winds up happening? Oh, back to poverty is the biggest pimp. So those people aren't taken care of because we don't have social safety net. So where do they go? They go back to where there's a roof and there's food. And so they go right back to their traffickers. Not every case, but what are they going to do? What do you think they've been learning all those years? That they have no value whatsoever and that they can't take care of themselves. And that they get out here into the world where the rest of us are trying to, work really hard and have a job and, use what we've learned and not being, physically disabled and mentally disabled and having, complex PTSD or anything else going on with that. These people need 360-degree care 24/7 because they get broken. There's no help for these people. None. I mean, yes, there are people that are doing wondrous things. There really are. But on the whole, there's nothing. And if you're a male victim of sex trafficking, oh my God, not only are we culturally designed so that we don't talk about, that happening because it's like, oh, that's a weakness of a man or whatever. There's also no services that are out here. Go try to look up, see how many beds are available for male victims of sex. This is where people are trying. There are other countries that don't even have human trafficking as in their law. It's not even illegal. So we got a lot of work to do. And we have to start not only with the ABCs, but I mean, we're talking when it comes to human trafficking education, we're trying to teach people shapes. This is a circle. This is the color red. We are not to even the alphabet yet, much less words, sentences, complex thought processes, and anything that gets all the way to the top of Maslow's hierarchy, where you actually self-actualize and understand this topic at all. Dude, we don't know anything as a world about this, but the people in charge do.
Oh my gosh, Billy Joe, that will be a very hard job for our editors to make it a 30-minute show, because every piece of information you've provided is priceless. And this is what should media show every day of our life. All this, how it works, how everyone is vulnerable, why it's happening, and why it will never stop. Thank you so much. Really.
Oh yeah. If you want to see what it's like when you get these little things in small snippets, my partner, Dr. David Deeds, has a TikTok channel called Human Trafficking Hater. Super simple. He runs a YouTube channel as well. Same thing, Human Trafficking Hater. Lots of small, easy to ingest, bite-sized things. People are not interested. It's crazy. I mean, he has almost 500,000 views right now on TikTok, but it's like you'll put out one that's like it is a horrendous story, and he's got it all consolidated in a minute and a half. And it's like 50 views, or if he has, anyway, whatever. Point is that the information is out there. People just aren't interested. So the question is always, how do you make them interested? So Dave and I have had different approaches. I met him because he did his YouTube channel. I was like, this guy's cranking out awesome content. He's questioning the whole system. I love this guy. I have to meet him. And that's how we wound up meeting. So now he's doing the same thing on TikTok. He sits in his car, just like I'm sitting in my car right now. He's waiting for his kids at school. So he does a TikTok video based on an article that's on our blog. So he's like going, oh, okay, all right. I got 5 minutes. I got 3 minutes. Okay, I'll do a video. So we're trying. We're putting this stuff out constantly. I mean, there's no better place to go than the PBJ Learning Knowledge Vault. I put everything together there. No advertisement, no nothing. I just pull all of the stories out of the media, put them right in there. Almost no view. Almost nothing. It's like, I don't know what the answer is. We're on it all the time. I tweet, I Facebook, I blog post. Dave does TikToks and YouTube videos. And we work on our course, and we push this, and we have VR. And we're working on more VR stuff, and we're working on more online courses. And it's just like, how are we going to do this? But I will tell you that this is the thing that if it sounds hopeless, don't hear that. You're just hearing my frustration, because the people that have used our product, our VR product, and our online education course, our certificate level course that's interactive, and it's 6 times more engaging according to Carnegie Mellon and all the studies, that interactive is 6 times more effective than passive, like watching a video and reading something. The people that go through our course, the people that use our VR app, their lives change. I go to events like one time, a year after year, the same event, South by Southwest, a bunch of gaming events. The families that go through our experience come back the next year, and they tell us stories that will break your heart, that are just so beautiful. They'll come in and they'll say, I really didn't think much about this experience, until I realized that I didn't know who my kids' friends were. So they actually wind up and they learn who their kids' friends are, and then they put their family in therapy, and they come back. You changed our entire family's trajectory just in 15 minutes. I'm telling you, this stuff works. It is one of the answers. But if you want to get people to rip those glasses off, this will do it. So people are making a difference. It's just too slow.
Thank you, Billy Joe. It's a nice opening information. And even for us, we are studying these topics for so long. For 3 years, we are building the creative society, and we are opening this truth to people, showing the conferences, forums, interviews, and still there is a lot of new information which you opened for us. Thank you so much for that. And I'm glad that we are here on the platform of the Creative Society, that we are not just discussing how cruel, how dark, and how sick our world is, that we have a hope, that we have a platform which can change everything in this world. It's called Creative Society. And you were talking a lot about vulnerability, how those who take advantage of people, how they use our need against us, promising us something, making us feel that they can help, and then using us, using our bodies, our souls, our lives. And I'm glad to say to our viewers that in the Creative Society, basic needs of all people will be covered. And this is how these things will just disappear, that human life will be the first priority. And nobody will be able to take an advantage of you, your child, and anyone of your family. No one will be able to break a law, because in the Creative Society, information is transparent. Media are serving to the society. Everyone is taking a responsibility. And I just want to finish this show on a positive note, because we're living in a very dark world, in very difficult times, but we have a hope. Let's watch one last video, and I invite everyone to learn more about the Creative Society.
Did you know about the Creative Society project that unites people all over the planet to change a world for the better? This project implies fair distribution of natural resources among all people, implementation of new technologies, providing water and food security, and so on. No investment in warfare worldwide. Individual wealth limit of $10 million. Stopping corruption and fraud. Using released money to improve the quality of people's life, such as universal basic income for all, free housing, free healthcare, free education. Check out Creative Society to find out more.
What do you think of this, Billy Joe?
Okay, here's what I think. I think we all need hope. I think we all need to believe that we can do something to make a change in our world, in our closer area, and in our tighter area. When I hear things that promise so much, it's a bit scary. Not gonna lie, that's a pretty massive list of things to be seeing. But what I want to say is that is, and one of the big things is trying to actually get people to agree on what that goal ought to be. I think things like not living in pain, not being abused, not being taken advantage of. I mean, those are like super basic. Can we please just agree on those things? So I just want people to wake up and stop being abused.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jason, would you like to say some final words for our viewers? What do you think of all this conversation, of all the information which we've got today?
Well, firstly, I know that most people's reaction is like Billy Joe's here. And he's revealed a lot, and because of his altruism and because he was impacted, he pursues this life to inform and rip off those rose-colored glasses. So I'm going to do the same for you all about Creative Society, because for whatever reason, our brains have trouble bridging this gap of disparity between who's in charge in a corporation versus who's in your household. So I'm going to start with that. The people who want the Creative Society is all of us. And the people that can make the change is all of us. There's no one that needs to give us permission to do that. As a matter of fact, most constitutions guarantee this. Specifically in the United States, it's the core democratic values. All we have to do is agree, as Billy Joe did just say, that these are things we can agree upon. And if we can't really agree that human life is the most valuable, then we really need to take a cold, hard look in the mirror of why we're even here. What are you even doing? It's normal people who work in corporations. It's normal people that work in investment banks. It's normal people who are, in a lot of those situations, the pimps and warlords, as Billy Joe has informed us today, who were in this perpetual cycle of our consumer society. And so it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. And that's how villains are made, right? Poverty is the biggest pimp, as I like how he put that today. But it's very true and it's very real. And that is the consumer society. And at one point, the consumer society was consuming things so that all of us have a better access to wealth, technology, and a better living. But when we start turning that consumer format of consumerism into something transactional in which we treat human life as a transaction, that's when it's time to change. And thankfully, we have the Creative Society Project with people all over the world, over 180 different countries who truly do value human life. And I'm sure everyone that watches this will too. So that's what I would like to add. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you, Billy Joe, for visiting us today and for allocating so much time of yours. I know that your time is very valuable. I know that our calls were very short before because you always have a lot of meetings. So allocating 1.5 hour for us, it's brilliant. And thank you so much for providing so much information, literal facts and connections. So really a person who never heard of these things can understand the holistic picture. Thank you so much.
Human trafficking is not just sex.
Thank you for that today. Thank you so much for that today. A lot of people do not understand that.
Thank you, guys.